Piss in a cup. Cobb says that the federal correction system is run on systemic corruption. He says that all the guards are related at Warkworth. Cobb says the prison commits more crimes on a daily basis than all of the crimes of the inmates added together. Cobb says the guards run the tuck shop for the prisoners and that the prisoners have to buy all their stuff like shoes and toothpaste from the prison tuck shop. Cobb says the guards go and buy shoes for $35 at a department store and then sell them to the prisoners for $129. And get this, Cobb says they collect the tax from the prisoners and don't turn it over to the government. Cobb says that if the Auditor General's office had its staff tripled, a lot of civil servants would go to jail in this country. Cobb says the union the guards are in has this work policy that everyone plays at. Cobb says they call in sick a couple times a week and then someone has to cover for them, and then that person gets paid double time for working an unscheduled shift. That's the way the union negotiated it. Then, the guy who called in sick at the beginning of the week tells the shift supervisor he feels a lot better at the end of the week, and that if anyone calls in sick, he's available for an unscheduled shift. And, of course, he gets paid double time for it. And, of course, his buddy that covered for him at the beginning of the week calls in sick at the end of the week. Cobb says the whole prison system is an industry, a false economy for the government. Paddy was in the kitchenette of his bachelor apartment. He was fixing himself a rye and coke. He had a joint lit in his free hand. "Are you sure you don't want a drink?" Paddy asked. His back was to Will. He had on his pink housecoat over boxer shorts, and he had rabbit ear slippers on his feet. "Or why don't you take a hit off this joint? I mean, what's with this squeaky clean stuff anyway? I'm starting to wonder if you're a narc." "I can't drink or use drugs, Paddy. You know that. I've told you that." Paddy shook his head, picked up his drink, and returned to his seat. Cobb says that the prison system is constantly claiming it has no money, that it has to close down programs. And Cobb says a good portion of the money in the prison economy is being siphoned off by corrupt unions and fraudulent bookkeeping. "Will," Paddy said, and he paused very deliberately for a moment, his eyes looking up and away. "I want you to understand something. Prison is a very difficult environment with very many stresses. Most convicts come out of jail with attitudes very similar to Cobb's. You just need to see that it's anger that's coloring their perception. And where there is colored perception, there's false reporting. Do you want to understand what I'm trying to tell you?" "I think so," Will said. "Good," Paddy said, "because you've taken on quite a responsibility living with Cobb. You have to be a part of his rehabilitation process. You're young and you're full of hope and goodness." "Yes," Paddy said when Will lifted his face to look at him. "Goodness. I see goodness in you. Just give Cobb his space. He has a lot of anger to work through. Cobb says you can tell good people from bad people by how they treat vulnerable things." "Well, that's probably true," Paddy said. "But do I need to remind you, Will, that your friend is a convicted felon? Convicted. A convict. And that means he has burdened society with the costs of his incarceration, not to mention the cost of his trial. Destructive behavior ripples through our whole society, Will, and it affects us all, not least of all in the taxes we pay." Will stubbed his cigarette in the ashtray. He buttoned up his coat. It was cold outside. It was that time of year right between fall and winter. The cold was coming, but there was a little more time before it settled in with its immovable persistence. "Oh," Will said, "I almost forgot. Here are your cigarettes." Will handed Paddy the carton of cigarettes. He frowned a little and said, "Listen, I'm almost embarrassed to bring this up, but Cobb says you have to think about settling your tab pretty soon." Whoa, what's it at?" Paddy asked. "Just shy of $400, Will said. "Ouch!" Paddy said. "That's a big cigarette tab." "Cobb says you haven't paid for weeks." Okay, Paddy said. "Tell Cobb I'll settle up in the middle of the month." "That should be okay," Will said. "I'm out of weed too," Paddy said. "Cobb says no more weed until the tab is paid." Paddy looked forlorn for a moment. "Well, that's a bit extreme, don't you think?" "I don't know," Will said. "Oh," Will added, pulling a sample jar from his coat pocket. "Here's Cobb's urine sample." Paddy said, "I'm supposed to witness the urine test if he doesn't go to a designated clinic." "Come on, Paddy," Will said. "I'm not going to let you watch me piss in a cup." End of chapter.